Hi, hello friends, I am Janelle Antipuesto and these are my group mates. Agravio Jovan, Alquizalas Grisa Maika, and Andas Charme. And we are from BSED English 1A. For today, we were going to talk about psycholinguistics. Psycholinguistics is a branch of study which combines the disciplines of psychology and linguistics. It is concerned with the relationship between the human mind and the language as it examines the process that occur in the brain while producing both written and spoken discourse. So when we say psycholinguistics, from the word itself psycho, that is concerned with our mind and the way we think, and linguistics, that means a study of language. It is mainly concerned how languages are processed and represented in the brain. So for example, how word or sentences represented and computed in the brain. There are primary processes of psycholinguistics, and these are language comprehension, language acquisition, and language production that we are going to talk today. So tune in and get ready for the discussion.
First primary process of psycholinguistics is language comprehension. So language comprehension is the ability to understand the meaning of words, phrases, clauses, and sentences we listen, or just simply understanding the words and how words are put together to form sentences. It's like making sense of the language we hear and the language we read. Language comprehension is one of the most automatic tasks that humans perform, yet it is also one of the most complex, requiring the simultaneous integration of many different types of information, such as knowledge about letters and their sounds, spelling, grammar, word meanings, and general world knowledge. Those are really important because before you will have the ability to comprehend language, you must first possess the ability to understand the information or components of their language. For example, Tom feeds the dog and the dog feeds Tom. Those two sentences have completely different meanings despite containing exactly the same words. And because of our language comprehension, we were able to understand the difference even by just listening once or even without thinking about it so hard. So that's it for your language comprehension.
Baby, you don't know.
So for my part, I will be discussing the second process. So the second process is the language acquisition. So from the word acquisition itself, it is a state or an act of acquiring something, in which in this case it is acquiring a certain or a particular language. So language acquisition is also a strand of psycholinguistics, in which it talks about of how people learn, speak, or use a particular language, and it also talks about the processes that are involved mentally and that are taken, or the people that are undergoing, in which it is the state that they are trying to acquire, or steps that it helps them acquire that certain or particular language.
Baby, you don't know.
And now, let us go to the third area of psycholinguistics, which is the language production. When we say language production, it is a concept wherein psycholinguistics describes the stages of speech from the initial mental concept to the spoken, or it can be written linguistic result. So in simplest of terms, language production is the process of communicating through language. So let's have a basic example of this. Okay, picture out a person who is thinking of an apple, then using their mouth to physically sound out the word apple. Then there should be another person hearing this and perceiving the sounds that make up the concept of apple. Then they have the mental representation of the apple. So that is the simplest process of language production.
Take me to the
And the last area or process of psycholinguistics is called the second language acquisition or SLA, and it is also known as L2 or language 2 acquisition. The simplest definition for L2 is it is the process by which people learn a second language. Second language acquisition is also the scientific discipline devoted to studying that process. When we say second language, this refers to any language learned in addition to a person's first language. Although the concept is named second language acquisition, it can also incorporate the learning of third, fourth, or subsequent languages. Some errors that second language learners make in their speech originate in their first language. For example, a Spanish speaker learning English may say, "is raining," rather than saying the correct one, which is, "it is raining," leaving out the subject of the sentence, which is it. This kind of influence of the first language and the second is known as the negative language transfer. Another error that can occur is called language convergence. This occurs for children acquiring a second language. The grammar structures or common grammatical patterns of one language may influence another. So now, let's have the summary of psycholinguistics. So we have the four main areas: the language acquisition, that is how do children acquire language. The second is language comprehension. It is how do people comprehend language. Third is language production. It is how do people produce language. The last but not the least, the second language acquisition, which is how do people who already know one language acquire another one. Furthermore, psycholinguistics divide their studies according to the different components that make up human language. These linguistic-related areas are phonetics and phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. So we already know that phonetics and phonology are the study of speech sounds. When we say morphology, it is the study of word structures. When we say syntax, it is the study of how words are combined together in order to form sentences. And when we say semantics, it deals with the meaning of words and sentences. Lastly, if we'll say pragmatics, it is concerned with the role of context in the interpretation of meaning.
I'll show you all the stars I used to hide.